I'd be in the classroom, the professors were liberal back then. They were all liberal, but they weren't talking about blowing up America. I don't remember a single Islamist professor. In fact, I don't remember a single Islamist student. I didn't say Muslim. I said Islamist. I don't remember anybody in there saying, death to America, or we have to overthrow the American empire, or any of that stuff. Well, Washington State University, what is that known for, basically? Nothing. It's another kook university. This one is like one of the farthest places in the country. I've often wondered if you're like a representative from Washington State, all the way up here, or depending on what map you're looking at, it's all the way over here. That's a long damn flight. The only worst flight would be to Hawaii or maybe to Alaska. But can you imagine being a representative in Hawaii? You go home to see the constituents every week? I doubt it. First, you got to fly to the West Coast. Then you got to. That is like a 10-hour deal every single weekend. Unless you enjoy the little bottles of booze, and I bet some of them do. But you get the point. Washington State's way out there. But nonetheless, for those of you in Washington, it's probably right in your backyard. Washington State University, like virtually every other university or college in America, sucks. And I mean this now. I mean it. If you're going to get a quality education these days, it is tough. It is tough. Even if you get to one of these schools where it's hard to get in, it is tough to get an education without the ideology, without the propaganda, without demagogic faculty members, without feeling threatened by people in your class. You know, I remember when I went to college and law school, couldn't get out of either of them fast enough, so I cut a year off of college. Cut a year off of high school. I wanted to cut a year off of law school, but the dean wouldn't let me. You know, they wanted that third year tuition. But nonetheless, I spoke out all the time, and I was in the minority. Can you imagine that? In 1976, when Ronald Reagan was running in the Republican primary against Gerald Ford, I was a student at Temple University. And I was in their suburban campus. Sometimes I'd be at their North Philly campus. That was a thrill. But nonetheless, I'd been accepted in other universities, some of which have ivy on their walls. We just couldn't afford it, and that was fine by me. So I went to Temple, and I went to Temple Law School, same thing there. But in any event, I'd be in the classroom. The professors were liberal back then. They were all liberal, but they weren't talking about blowing up America. I don't remember a single Islamist professor. In fact, I don't remember a single Islamist student. I didn't say Muslim. I said Islamist. I don't remember anybody in there saying, death to America, or we have to overthrow the American empire, or any of that stuff. Oh, there were garden variety Marxists. They were always fun to kick around. Garden variety lefties, they were always fun to kick around. But nothing like there is today, nothing. There really was free speech. And I would stir the pot, you know. I remember in history and political science and these other relatively useless courses that I took, I remember saying things in order to get a rise out of a couple of the students. When I was in law school at Temple University in northern Philadelphia, we called it North Philadelphia, I would take typically a bus to the subway to the North Philadelphia subway stop, or a train stop, and then I would walk about 3 blocks to the law school. Back then it was very dangerous. And in the evenings when it was dark, it was even more dangerous. In fact, I think back then Temple University had the 2nd or 3rd biggest police force in the state. Philadelphia having the biggest. But I didn't feel like it was dangerous. Today it's prohibitively dangerous. You just can't do that. But then again, what did I know? And I had a professor in a class called Constitutional Law and Civil Rights, and I took it just to have fun, to be perfectly honest with you, because I knew where this was coming from. And the professor was the vice chairman of the Philadelphia ACLU. And he was a very nice man, nice enough. Most of these guys are, they're kind of dorkish. And I'm in the back of the class there, and the funny thing was this. I am wearing my Reagan button. My Reagan button. I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't attacked. People were curious when I'd have an opportunity to explain it. Some people who you might not think would agree with me agreed with a lot of it. I found myself in an alliance often with some of the more radical black students. When I would explain central government, the problem with the government, and so forth and so on. So that was interesting. But in this class in particular, the professor brings out a copy of, it was either Playboy or Penthouse. And he opens it to the centerfold and says, is this First Amendment protected free speech? So all the women in the class who were radical left-wing kooks, they got up, well, not all, about 80%, because you have to keep in mind, law school is very left-wing, particularly in North Philadelphia at Temple University. And they objected. They got up, they were screaming at him, a couple of them left. Not to offend, many of them were braless, that's the way it was back then. And I'm sitting in the back, and I'm laughing. Why? Because here you have the liberals fighting with the liberals, the leftists fighting with the left. Who else is sitting in the back with me laughing? A number of the minority students are sitting back there laughing. We're sitting in the back there laughing because we're watching them fight with each other. Which was about as entertaining as law school ever got, to be perfectly honest with you.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.